Good to be here. Thanks for coming. My name is Jaime Novoa. I used to work as a journalist until very recently, and I now moved to what some people call the dark side, to the venture business. So Christopher, to give a bit of context to the people here, so you moved to Barcelona in the late 90s as an entrepreneur and then decided to build a VC firm, Active Venture Partners. Why did you decide to move into the VC business?
Well, first of all, I came here as a student, so I wasn't yet an entrepreneur. And into the VC business, honestly, I didn't know what VC was when I came here. Building up AutoScout24, and then actually I built up a company called Boat24. So AutoScout24, many people know because it became quite successful. Boat24, very few people know because it was a complete failure. And I think for me, that company showed me that it's really about failing to understand what entrepreneurship is all about. And then seeing a lot of investors in those 2000, 2001 times, most of the investors were very financial oriented, but there was not the entrepreneurial connection. So I felt that there was a big spot in Europe to build up an entrepreneurial-minded VC that knows what is this tough way of building up companies.
Do you think that has changed the very financial mentality from investors, or is that still the case in Spain? Well, mostly in Spain. Let's talk about Spain.
Well, I think recently a lot of amazing bloggers become venture capitalists, like yourself. No, so I think it has changed. I think right now there's first of all an understanding that you need to have some very close connection to the startup world and being connected to entrepreneurial ventures to understand, let's say, both sides. So there's definitely a change, but I think there needs to be done quite a lot more.
So do you think that's a matter of like more people from the operating side moving into the VC business? Because I think one of the things that had happened in Spain, and it's probably going to happen more in the next generation of VCs, is that up until a few years ago, the majority of VCs came from consultancy or financial background. Now we have some former operators who have built companies who are now VCs. Do you think that VCs need to have that operating experience, or can they also come have nothing to do with the VC business?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it's a little bit like in politics. I don't know. Do you know in Germany? Do you know how political system in Germany works? So you become like a minister, and then whatever position is open, and you become a medical minister or the minister for whatever law or family, but you have nothing to do with it. Yeah. So I think that's pretty difficult, no? So I think the same thing applies for venture capital or for entrepreneurship. I think it's very difficult because for me, venture capital is nothing else than an empowering platform for entrepreneurship. So if you have no connection with actually what it means to build up a company, it's quite difficult to be part of this sector.
Yeah, exactly. So a few years ago, we're going to go talk a bit about Change VC. You launched this study about how entrepreneurs and the ecosystem in general perceived VCs. So tell us a bit about what you saw and the conclusions that you drew.
Yeah, okay. So maybe just in the audience, so do you guys think, I mean, venture capital, does it need to change? I mean, if you think, just give me a hand, all right? So we have 4 people. Okay, so we have asked about close to 600 people, most of them entrepreneurs, but I think also about 160 VCs. What happens, or what should happen to VC? And actually 85% said venture capital should change, okay? And just run you quickly through, that means actually 70% of entrepreneurs would tell you to stay away from VCs, and that's a net promoter score of 64 negative. All NPS, you know how it works? Okay, so basically if you have a restaurant around the corner and nobody or very little people would recommend to go to that restaurant, how long would that be in business, that restaurant, right? It would be probably in business for a week. So this is happening with venture capital, entrepreneurs saying the same thing about them. And then what you just said before, actually, venture capitalists should be understanding it's not about really earning the money, but we should add value on board seats and so on. Another interesting fact is the positive experience once entrepreneurs are with venture capitalists is only at 39%. And it's also not the most wanted investor. Most of the times it's actually business angels that are wanted. And here are some of the main values that entrepreneurs look within VCs. So shared values, no headache, and add value to their journey. And very interesting is what the different people think. So entrepreneurs think VCs should be first entrepreneur friendly, they should be sector experts, and they should be collaborative. Very interesting is that VCs think that they should be hands-on position 3. Entrepreneurs really think hands-on should be really, is one of the last things VCs should be doing. And number 8, just to give you a bit of, what's the biggest problems in the deal making. So especially liquidation preferences are the points where a lot of conflict is happening, and veto rights. And what should be really added is actually context to further funding rounds and probably strategic guidance during board meetings. And by the way, there's still a lot of VCs running around with ties. I think, anyway, that's for sure that's not more needed.
So talking about, I think one of the interesting things about the VC industry is that we mostly invest in innovative companies, but the VC business as itself hasn't changed that much in like 20, 30 years, until from the economic point of view. So how do you think it should evolve? And tell us a bit more about your thinking about vertically focused venture capital firms.
Yeah, I think we did this research about 3 years ago because we were thinking about, let's say, launching a new fund. And I think it's quite difficult to add value to an entrepreneurial team if you're not understanding a vertical very deeply. So for me at least, I think the future of venture capital is definitely in vertical expertise, because I think as a investor you should have a large vision as well for a certain sector, because how can you make at all good decisions in investing if you have not a vision of where the sector will be moving to? Mm-hmm. So you have to have a deep understanding of it. So that's, I think, one of the first points. But anyway, I think I want to... Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, and do you think for example, talking about Spain, that the Spanish market is big enough to be able to build like a vertically focused VC firm?
I don't believe in geographic limitations anymore. I think that's, we created boxes, over the last 30 years. For me, the most interesting part is, so how many rounds do we have before an A round? Can somebody give me a number? How many investment rounds are before an A round? Like, how many other investment rounds could there be?
2, 3.
Yeah, 2, 3. So why is it called A round, right? Shouldn't that be the first round? But hey, don't we have friends and family? Then there's business angels. I heard now we have pre-seed. Then we have seed. Then we come to A round. So A round is actually round 5. Okay, so I think venture capital really we have to, let's say, rethink a little bit what we are doing, because it's a lot of things are not working out anymore, and geographic focuses have no reason to be honest, and maybe in the early stages, very early. So if we talk about business angel, because mm-hmm. you want to go and have a coffee with your teams. But other than that, you have to be an expert in a certain vertical, but you'll find the best teams, wherever in the world. Yeah.
So we were talking backstage a bit about so that VCs and I guess investment professionals in general have always tended to focus mostly exclusively on the return, on the exit, and for quite some time now, you're thinking more, or you have a different way of viewing that, in terms of what you call high-impact investing. When did you start thinking about high impact investing, and explain to the audience what you consider high impact investing?
Okay, how many of you have kids? Okay, did that change for you? Life a little bit? Yes? I'm not only talking about diapers, okay? I mean like as a world, I would say viewpoint. So together with my wife, we have 3 kids, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4 months little lady. And I think that was the moment where really life changed for me. And I, to be honest, so being an entrepreneur, going to be an investor for the last 15 years, I suddenly realized that I think also venture capital, and I want to be a bit, maybe it's a bit controversial, but I think we are part of a problem here. And everything, and we all hear in our wonderful startup world about unicorn hunting, right? But what are we actually doing? We're looking up to people that are just there building unicorns. So it's all about the billions, but it's not about the people anymore, right? We are creating the latest automations. I'm looking at my portfolio, and today I must say I'm not very proud of some of the investments that we do, because it's all about efficiencies. What does efficiencies do? We take people out of their jobs, right? So what is this world that we're actually building? And if I think now of my children, and I think about them, they asking me in the next 5 years or 10 years, hey, Daddy, what have you been doing, to make this place a bit different? You know what? We have made it super efficient so that in the next 5 years, 3.5 million truck drivers will be on the streets in the US because we have created the autonomous car. I don't know if that's the coolest thing to tell to your kids, to be honest. So I think, yes, as VCs, and we all as entrepreneurs, we have to again think about what are we actually doing? Are we doing stuff just to make the next million, or are we actually impacting something that's positive in this world? And that's my scope. So
if you were building Active now and starting Active now, do you think you would make different investment decisions? And how do you explain that? Because obviously, investors or VCs, we have our own investors. So you have to explain it to them, and you have to find probably investors that have that same vision. Would you make the same investment decisions, or do you think they would change?
They have completely changed, yes, I would say. And that's also, I think, so the first question is if I would do another fund. I think I will at some point in the future, but it will be completely different. It will be completely distinct, and exactly because it's based on the decisions. And I think now I'm completely focused on what's the purpose actually of that project. What are you making with your company? Are you doing that because you're looking for the ultimate exit? And the problem of VC is already in the first interview with an entrepreneur, you're saying, hey, by the way, we are stopping in 10 years' time our fund. Are you going to exit within that time frame? That's not in your vision? Sorry, we can't speak. How sick is that? We are living in a world where corporates are thinking from one quarter to the next quarter, because it's all about the next report. It's about the next financial objective towards stakeholders. It's not about the people anymore. So I think, yes, the next fund will be completely focused on people. What is the purpose of that entrepreneurial team? What will they make different in this world that will serve actually us as humans?
Yeah, so continuing with this topic, tell us a bit about what Learn Life is, and why did you decide to move into the education space, which as well hasn't changed in a long, long time?
Yeah, so 4 years ago, I was with my family in Asia, and I woke up one morning, and we were discussing a lot about the future of learning and education. So where do our kids go to school? And what happens actually to us as humans? And then it struck me, like I was looking into, I think, the German system by that time, and I really looked, and I went to the school that potentially could be the school of my kids. And it was the same school that I went to 30 years ago. It was the same setup. And, we all have been there the last 20, 25 years. What have we been doing, no? All these amazing innovations that are happening. Some of them are really doing good stuff. But this is completely disconnected what's happening right now in our schools around the world. So basically, we built a project called Our Dream School. The thing is, we actually changed last week to Learn Life because it's not a dream anymore, because it's reality, and it's not a school. What we have been building up is a learning innovation community. Here in Barcelona is the pilot around the world, so the first space that we have built is actually here in Barcelona. And it's basically creating a completely new paradigm for learning. So we have been traveling to the 100 most innovative schools around the world to gather all the best practice that exists today in the world, and which we can actually structure around a learner and help that learner to become a super motivated lifelong learner and thrive in this future. And that's basically what we do.
So is the idea for the kids to go through their whole education through the program, or is it more like complementary to traditional education?
Right. So what we have been doing is we've been building learning, new innovative learning elements that happens from 0 years to 100. So any learning educational institution can access these learning elements in an open source platform to empower their innovation into the future. If you want, I mean, in our world, it's almost like a learning accelerator. So to help schools to accelerate into a future. It's just not a physical space. You can go open source, or you can come to our spaces where you see how learning actually happens in 2019 if you let people to learn really in the right way.
And where can people learn more about Learn Life? What website?
Learnlife.com.
.com,
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to raise VC funding for it?
Sorry?
Are you going to raise venture capital money for it?
No.
Okay. Because
it's a project that we think that has a time horizon between 15 to 20 years. So the people that are investing with us and will invest with us have, let's say, are patient partners. And again, out of what I told you already, most funds have a time life that doesn't take into consideration that you think 15 to 20 years.
So I'm curious, did you try to find any kind of VC firm or venture capital firm that would have that timeline? I mean, did you try?
Actually, and now talking a bit more about maybe impact investment or social entrepreneurship. So I think there is a wonderful movement happening over the last, I would say, 10 years or so. It's a bit longer around, but since 10 years, it's really getting momentum. And some of those funds have also understood, or these groups of people have understood, you cannot build a closed fund for such an investment. It has to be evergreen fund. So yes, that exists, but it's still very rare.
Yeah, I think there's also things in the US, mostly in the US, like Indie VC or Lighter Capital. I mean, they mostly work with SaaS companies, but they don't have like that time horizon, or they are also looking to back profitable companies, not just like companies that get to the unicorn path and those kind of things. So I think that's changing a bit. It's slowly, but it's changing also.
And then there are, I would say, again, going the way to family offices. So family offices, if you find the right one, they have, if they have the right visions, then that's most of the time their background comes that they've been building up for 50, 100, 150 years, organizations that are based on very solid values. So their whole mindset is different. So there are people and structures that you can find today, but I think there is a huge possibility, a huge gap that we can fill.
So to wrap it up, I have a question to the audience. How many of you are entrepreneurs, founders, or work at startups? How many of you have raised funding or are looking to raise funding? So what do you tell these guys?
Well, first of all, I hope that you are completely in passion with what you're doing. I think, well, at least for me, when I see the glow in the eyes of people that really are completely passionate about what they do, it's like the most beautiful starting point. The second point is there's a lot of conversation, and I think we started off sharing, do we speak about venture capital in Barcelona, venture capital in Spain, and so on. I think there's this big myth, no? I mean, you have to look, there has to be capital in your ecosystem, in your local ecosystem, so that you can be successful. I think if you are the one person that really understood the deeper vision of your sector and you have found a perfect user-centric product or service, you can go wherever and you'll find investors that trust in you. Okay, that's, I think, something very important. Just look for the right people being super connectors that will connect you to that right investor. And I think those are some of the things that I live personally, because right now I'm back on the other side, if you want to say, and it's about people that align around the same vision, and that's very important. Oh, last thing, make sure you have your own values, your own culture very clear mapped out, and look that you will find that same values and that same culture in the partner you get on board. Because I think on average, all of our portfolio companies, they are 7 years with us. So imagine you are 7 years married to somebody in a board and you don't have fun together or you don't share the same values. That's a really crappy time, okay?
Chris, this has been great. Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you, guys.